How much noise can the Los Angeles Rams make in the NFC? We're examining the state of the Rams roster today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And Kyle, my condolences to you.
For the retirement of Devontae Parker?
Oh, you know what? That was definitely part of it, but it wasn't the leading cause of mine. I'm sure you saw the news this morning. Red Lobster. Bankruptcy, Kyle.
Yeah, I've seen this, and I've wondered about how much money I could fundraise to buy just the biscuits portion. Have you seen the details of the bankruptcy filing that they've put in?
No, but I'm guessing you've
no, I've done a lot of research on this. There's some like parent seafood company that like I don't know, they like dumped their own assets into Red Lobster and became like their sole shrimp provider. And then they started overcharging Red Lobster for the shrimp. So I'm mad at that company.
Oh, wow. This reaches deep.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to the Red Lobster bankruptcy filings. But I would just like to start a GoFundMe for us to collectively buy just the biscuit. I can get shrimp in a lot of places, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But we need to buy the biscuit recipe from Red Lobster as a part of their fire sale.
I'm sure you would also like to extend a thank you to Bill Belichick for giving the Miami Dolphins a third round pick for Devontae Parker?
Round pick for Devontae Parker, yeah.
For him to produce what in 2 years?
I don't know. All I know is I'm glad I had one last excuse to hit retweet on that Bill Simmons tweet for when the have you seen that tweet?
Yeah, I know. I saw it. It was a good receipt to cash. I respected it for sure.
I've gassed it like 15 times in the last 18 months. I think about that tweet all the time.
A third round pick for 64 catches across 2 seasons and a retirement after extending him.
Don't forget dead last in next gen stats and separation stats for another 2 seasons.
Kid can never forget. You and I had a fun conversation about Devontae Parker and Stevie Johnson, and that they had their best seasons with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who just will stir it down and rip it in there, baby. Right?
I'm gonna jam that baby in there no matter what.
Okay, we're here to talk about the Los Angeles Rams. Welcome, Rams house, the Ramily, whatever you guys call yourselves. It's your turn to go under the microscope. We've studied your team. Okay, sure, go right ahead.
You know who's a Rams fan that has like this incredible story that I didn't really know about?
No.
Who is the Latino actor, the action actor? With a handlebar mustache.
Come on, are you kidding me?
Okay, you tell everybody. I'm gonna find him. It was really making me mad that I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. But I saw like a 15-minute video about like his background, and like I want to give him a shout out, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head. So tell everybody about what we're doing, and then I'm gonna get it.
State of the Roster series continues today with the Los Angeles Rams. It is NFC West week. Yesterday we did the San Francisco 49ers. Today is the Rams. And what we've done and what we will do and what we have done for every team in the NFL is look at all of your talent, study it, and label each player as either a roster cornerstone, a quality starter, a rookie, an adequate starter, replacement level player, quality depth, non-roster caliber, incomplete evaluation, or a practice squad developmental player. And each bucket has a point value assigned to it. It's weighted in terms of positional importance. And at the end of this, we get a roster score to tell you how good your football team is. And then on Friday, we do the tier maker for your division, and we're going to rank them all. You're going to stack up all the O-lines and the offensive skill groups and the D-lines and all the position groups 1 through 4 within the NFC West. And then, of course, at the end of this, we do that for the entire NFL. So, Rams, welcome. You are under the microscope. Surely Kyle has figured out who this actor is.
I had about 3 seconds after you started talking. So, Danny Trejo. You know who Danny Trejo is?
Yeah, I do know Danny Trejo. I've seen a few.
The Latino action actor, right? With the mustache that we were trying to figure out. That's the guy. You know what his background is? Like his life story?
I don't know. It's
a really inspirational life story about turning your life around. And I want to give, because I know he's a diehard Rams fan. Like he actually has like videos and stuff on like NFL.com as like a Rams fan talking about the Rams.
He's the Darius Rucker Dolphins guy, right?
Yeah, he's the Dolphins.
The Wolf Blitzer for the Bills, you know, everyone's got one of these.
Right. The famous diehard fan. Yeah. And it's Danny Trejo for the Rams. So I'm giving a shout out to Danny Trejo as we get into the Los Angeles Rams and the Ramily.
Luke Combs for the Panthers. That'd be a fun series. Like, who's your most famous, like, loud fan?
Okay.
We got to get into the Rams.
July content. That's July content.
Kyle, the offense. Let's get into it before we get too far. The biggest thing that stands out to you about this Rams offense is what?
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is how different it is than the other Shanahan tree teams from a roster building perspective. We did that with San Francisco yesterday. We talked about, wow, you look at the skill players here. They're loaded to the nines with skill players. Green Bay, they've invested a ton in the skill players. Miami, they've invested a ton in skill players. McVay has zagged. Well, the other guys have zigged when you consider the investments in the offensive line and the extension of Kevin Dotson, who was a revelation for them last year, signing Jonah Jackson free agency. I mean, they got $15+ million a year guards at their disposal now. A second-round pick in Steve Avila, who played guard, presumably going to be the center, played 1,200 snaps last year as a rookie and was good. The investment in the offensive line, they've got a pillar in Rob Havenstein, who's been there forever, and Alaric Jackson overtaking Joe Noteboom. I don't know that anybody had that on their bingo card 2 years ago, but that's the world that they live in. They are, and they got some good skill players. They're invested in the offensive line. And I think that, for me, is the thing that stands out the most, is the biggest storyline when you contrast it to the other guys that are off the same coaching tree as him.
I think the proof is in what happened last year with Kyren Williams and all the success that he had. Highly productive, Pro Bowler, deserved to be a Pro Bowler, was a big catalyst for that team, like having the success that they did. I think the offensive line played a big role in that. And you look at it this year and you feel like it's better. I mean, being able to add a Jonah Jackson makes this group better. And so that's exciting. And now they're even deeper at running back with Blake Corum as a 3rd-round pick. And we've seen the challenges that they've had with stable running backs. And so, like, I can appreciate them appreciating what they got out of Kyren Williams and saying, you know what? Love you. Thanks for everything. We're going to have even more depth. We're going to pound the rock. We got a lot invested in this offensive line, particularly the middle 3, and let's unleash it. Let's be able to run the football. And then, of course, you know, we got some weapons here. We've got Puka Nacua and the revelation that he was as a rookie. Cooper Kupp, when healthy, is still a high-level producer. And obviously they like guys like DeMarcus Robinson to be that other guy. And we'll see about their depth at receiver. I have plenty of questions about that. But if they're healthy at receiver and they can play behind this offensive line, oh, by the way, Matthew Stafford's a friggin' stud at quarterback. You know, there's a lot to like on this offense, not to mention, of course, what Sean McVay is as a play caller and a game planner. So I think one of the interesting things here as well, outside of all of that, is the tight end position where Tyler Higbee's coming off of an injury. They gave some decent money to Colby Parkinson, who's really not been an overly featured player for Seattle, but you know that there's some skill here, maybe some untapped potential. He blocks pretty well, but I think there's some receiving ability that we might get a chance to see here this season, especially while Higbee's working himself back. So I think that's going to be an interesting layer to this offense.
Well, I think the tight end room as a whole, when you look at the depth of it, with Davis Allen as a 5th-round pick from last year, they brought in Hunter Long as a part of the trade with Miami for Jalen Ramsey, and he was a former 3rd-round pick. I think all of those guys have a certain receiving potential that can be fulfilled. I don't think any of them's done it yet, but they all kind of have like the same body type too. Like Davis Allen's comp coming out was Hunter Long, right? And Parkinson is a little bit longer. He's a little bit of an authentic big body guy, but his NFL game to this point has been blocking. And you think about what the Rams were with Ben Skoranek, who's no longer on the roster, but that was like the big revelation and the genius of Sean McVay and the evolution of football, the wide receiver that can play fullback, right? And it's, well, that usually those are tight ends.
Yeah.
And I think they have a couple of guys, in addition to what they do with Puka Nacua when they're in their 11 personnel groupings as the physical receiver that can do a lot of that stuff. They have really expanded that part of their offensive personnel. And whether they want to go big with 12, whether they want to stay in 11 and do it, like I look at the physical element of the skill group between the wide receiver, some of the wide receivers and the tight end room. And I think that's a really nice thing to point out from you as far as this Rams offense, what its identity is, and how they're going to continue to find ways to go and be physical. And you take the interior offensive line and Havenstein and his overwhelming presence in the run game as a blocker, and then some of these skill guys that can play on the edge, you see the vision.
I have one question for you when it comes to this Rams offense on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. Folks, the NFL schedule has been released. There are so many high-profile games. I know the Rams have several of those. Hosting the Dolphins, right, is a primetime game in L.A. That'll be a fun one. Don't want to miss that one. And maybe you want to go. If you want to go to these high-profile NFL games, check out Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They specialize in last-minute tickets, which is awesome because you never know if you're going to be able to attend an event. Maybe you surprisingly get some availability that day. You want to get a last-minute ticket? Check out Game Time. They give you flash deals, all-in prices, a seat view from the app where you can check and see what the views are going to be, and a best price guarantee. So check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Here's the question.
Yes.
Do you think that you and I will ever be able to have a conversation about the Rams and Ben Skoranek's name not come up?
No.
It's guaranteed. It's part of life.
It was the Nick O'Leary's uncle or granddad granddad is Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah.
That it was the Ben Skoranek thing was crazy. If you took Jeremy Lin's run with the Knicks and put it into football terms, it was probably Ben Skoranek being like the hottest name in football for 3 months.
I like the comparison. What's funny is I heard another Jeremy Lin reference yesterday. And it's funny how you like don't hear something like that for a long time, and then all of a sudden it comes in bunches. Yeah. Right. So you just dropped the Jeremy Lin reference, and then Rich Eisen had a caller come in to his show, and they were talking about who the second best quarterback in the NFL was. And his comment was that it shouldn't be, Joe Burrow shouldn't be in the conversation because he had a Linsanity type run one time in the NFL. And Rich Eisen took great offense to that.
That's not right.
Rich is awesome, by the way.
Rich is my favorite. If I could listen to one daytime
so good, right?
Sports talk entertainment show, it would be Rich Eisen, and it's not close.
He has this ability to like take a side take a position and then like make you feel silly. Like very respectfully make you feel silly. Like, come on. Like,
and he's not loud about it.
No.
And he's very even keeled.
So good.
But like his work on the microphone in general, just like his cadence.
So good.
How conversationally he can be with himself at times.
Yeah.
He's really impressive.
Yeah.
So
he slows it down, and I could probably learn a lot from that.
Yeah. There's comfort in what I just did there, like the pause,
right,
and a little bit of dead air.
Yeah.
And so frequently it's like, I have so much to say. I'm really passionate about my point.
Right.
So I'm just going to drive 80 miles per hour through the entire 30-minute podcast that I have. And I'm going to talk like this the entire. I think I did that on Locked On Dolphins today because I was fired up about what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It was like, boom, start. And I looked up and I'm 28 minutes in. I said, oh, I got to wrap it up. Like, so.
Shout out Rich Eisen and Jeremy Lin for inspiring all this. All right, let's get to the yeah, if you're good on offense, we should talk defense. Man, a lot of transition here on the defensive side of the football. It's hard not to start with acknowledging that Aaron Donald's no longer part of this mix. 10 years of elite level play, and there's no replacing that guy, right? And that's a big loss. And I think he was the legit superstar power on this defense. And I think you got a lot of singles and doubles on this defense in general, but you're kind of wondering who's going to be those big time playmakers for this unit. I'm excited about a lot of their young talent up front. Kobie Turner, obviously a phenomenal rookie season. Byron Young, a phenomenal rookie season. I think Jared Verse as a first round pick. He edged one for you, if I'm not mistaken, right? You think very highly of Jared Verse. And, obviously they're counting on a lot from Braden Fiske as a fairly high pick. Bobby Brown is a run stuffer. I think one thing, and you have a couple of young guys, I know Sean Mathis and Nick Hampton as well as edge rushers. Interested to see how this all comes together. I think one of the things that they could do with this front that would make me like it a little bit more, I would play Michael Hoyt like more. I would reduce him inside. I would play him 5-tech, 4-eye type stuff because I worry about just how stout this unit's going to be up front. And I think between Bobby Brown and Michael Hoyt, I think you kind of get some of that Verse as well. I'd be leaning into those players quite a bit for your run stopping ability.
Yeah, I think they have a good blend of skills. I just don't think they have a lot of 3 down, every down type of fits, right? When you consider Byron Young, really like the pass rush ability, but the ability to consistently play in short yardage and early downs when you're going to get more running the ball. And if they're going to run at him, I think that's the question that exists with Byron Young. He was so good rushing the passer last year. I think he had 50 pressures last year, like an outstanding number for a rookie player. And that's why I like the pick of Jared Verse, right? Because if you take the strengths of Michael Hoyt and you blend it with the strengths of Byron Young, you get a player who I think has Jared Verse has the potential to be the best of both of those worlds in one player. And I think that's what they need a little bit more of, unless they're going to really be rotationally churning guys in and out. And if teams tempo you, then you kind of get stuck, right? It's kind of puts you between a rock and a hard place. I like that the glue player for the defense is right in the middle of it with Ernest Jones. Yeah. What an outstanding player he has become. Big brand win for us on this podcast, because I know we both liked Ernest Jones. And you made a great point in the pre-show talking about how he took the next step was how they used him on passing downs to keep him on the field, but aggressively trigger and play forward. And I think he was credited with over 30 pressures last year. Like, it's just really good pass rush production for a guy who you think about where he's at his best. It's probably not really in space covering a lot of deep landmarks. But that physicality and kind of the linear explosiveness that he has, and now the football instincts that's coming along with it, you really like that amidst all of the youth that exists here. And then the thing that you didn't mention that's not really factored in here, but we will factor in when we do the full grading of the teams, the transition from Raheem Morris to Chris Shula as a defensive coordinator. I mean, that's you talk about the loss of Aaron Donald. Raheem Morris potentially is just as impactful of a loss when you consider his impact on all the young players and the development that's necessary because of all the young players that they have.
Ernest Jones is a great glue piece for this defense, but I think it's pretty obvious we're both concerned about what's happening next to him. Christian Roseboom coming back, and looks like he's going to have a chance to start. And I thought he was a weak link on this defense, and kind of surprised they didn't do more here. What they do, they brought in Troy Reeder as kind of like a career special teamer. I think they need to, if they have any flexibility, I would try to find something here at linebacker to go with Ernest Jones. I think that could be a problem for this, especially when you don't have a guy like Aaron Donald playing in front of them. Secondary is interesting, Kyle. They got some veterans now at corner, bringing back Darious Williams, making what I would call a pretty aggressive move in signing Tre'Davious White, north of $10 million a season for one season. I think the world of Tre'Davious White. I think his first 5 seasons in the NFL, he was an absolute superstar. not just in coverage in terms of taking away stuff, but his ability to take away the football and do so in clutch moments. I mean, leading, like, for a long time, he led the league in fourth quarter takeaways. I think the world of him. But it's hard to look at the last 3 seasons and feel good about this player. An ACL tear 2 years ago that took him a while to come back from. And he's always been very candid and open. He was very honest about, like, the mental part of that and being able to trust it. And I think Trey White's a very calculated person. And I think and you could tell he wanted to play with the Rams because they have a history of bringing guys back from Achilles tears. Like, I like this as a spot for him, but you're relying on a lot here from Tre'Davious White, who 2 years ago has the ACL tear, took him a while to come back from. You finally felt like he was kind of back, and then he ruptures his Achilles. We have not seen him play football since rupturing that Achilles in week 4 last year. So, man, dude, I'm always going to be a Trey White fan, and I wish him all the success in the world. But I think there comes with a little bit of nervousness that I have in him being a player that's going to live up to the contract that they gave him. I mean, when is he going to be ready?
Right.
It's an Achilles, and he's a corner.
He's an older corner too. He's not just pushing 30. He's an older corner.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it.
I like the floor of the rest of the secondary with, you mentioned Darious Williams coming back. I think that's going to be a really nice hit for them with what he was the first time around. I think the big question is he was playing opposite Tyson Campbell and playing opposite Jalen Ramsey. Can Trey White be that guy? And I think that's a fair question to ask, and I think it's a fair question to ask when he's going to be ready. But I look at the rest of the secondary and bringing in Kamren Curl, and we've had a lot of healthy discourse around Kamren Curl. But if you told me he was going to go somewhere to replace a specific kind of player and it was to replace Jordan Fuller, I'm like, okay, like
modest deal as well.
Modest deal, but like that transition for the skill set makes a lot of sense for them. So, and Fuller was a good player for the Rams. So I think that's a good, nice fit for Kamren Curl. A couple young guys in Russ Yeast and Quentin Lake, and then Cam Kinchins. I know the questions about the physical profile that exists there, but again, Jordan Fuller, I go back to Jordan Fuller and the success that they had with him. He was a safety that ran in the 4.6s too, and kind of was known for his ball skills at Ohio State. Lo and behold, he ends up becoming this really reliable back-end player and a good tackler. We'll see what kind of work that they can work with Cam Kinchins on, but I like the makeup of a lot of the secondary. I just think the piece at the top I think that's a consistent theme on the front as well. You got a lot of exciting youth. Who's the guy at the top? Like, can Kobie Turner replicate his performance last year and take another leap from what he was last year? Can Trey White be the glue guy, or is Darious Williams capable of being the glue guy and being the guy in that room? I think those are the two questions that I have. And when you consider what the Rams construction was when they had Ramsey and Donald, right? And I guess you could probably include Bobby Wagner in there from 2020. Was it 2022? They still had all three of those guys. Like, they had the stars and scrubs mentality a little bit. I think they have a lot of exciting youth and player development that's now happening with this youth movement, but there's still the vacancy that's left from the stars that are no longer here.
All right, we are going to tie it all together here in just a moment. I have a compelling thought about the Rams and something that I think is an X factor in their season coming up here in just a moment, so be sure to stick with us. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a huge win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. I think we get, is it the hockey conference finals get started here? We got,
let's go Cats.
Want them to beat the Rangers for sure. Don't like the Rangers. Then it's with the Stars and the Oilers on the other side.
Big spring for Dallas because they have the Mavericks in the NBA Western Conference Finals too. Yeah,
it was and the Pacers as a 6 seed, right, going up against Boston. I know it's right, but you have the 3 and the 5 getting through on the Western side. So a lot of fun stuff happening across the world of sports. Check it out. Make every moment more and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So, Joe, we're now 25 minutes in.
Yeah.
And you know whose name we didn't mention?
Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, we've now done this twice this week, talking about quarterbacks.
I think Matthew Stafford's awesome. I think he's awesome.
He is.
And I think 2 years ago, coming out of the Super Bowl, that was a roster in transition right then and there, right? Like they had to come down, and Stafford had his own, like, he was kind of working through some stuff that year as well. And so I think maybe we forgot how awesome he was, and then he definitely reminded us last year as that season moved along that he is a stud.
You know what my favorite game was for Stafford last year?
What's that?
The overtime loss against the Ravens. When they went blow for blow.
Yeah.
And they had to get some late scores in the rain. And he made some big time throws down the stretch in that game that was like on the road in the rain. And you're like, man, he can still sling it.
Yeah.
I think the concern that you have for Stafford is obviously he's getting up there in age a little bit. You've kind of heard some rumblings of retirement. So I think the long-term outlook for the Rams is the quarterback is probably a little bit of a long-term question mark, but in the short term and in the immediate sense, you like that there's a run focus. You like that there's investments in the offensive line, and hopefully Stafford can stay healthy throughout the season and be the best version of himself all year for the Rams.
I like what the Rams are doing for late stage Matthew Stafford a whole lot more than what the Chargers did for late stage Phillip Rivers.
Rivers.
I think that's a heck of a contrast. I teased an X factor for the Rams this year, and there's no denying the transition on the defensive side of the football, whether it's players or coaching staff. And I think a lot of their season is going to be defined on how this comes together. I'm a little bit nervous about this early season schedule. Their first 5 games, they have a week 6 bye, which might come at a good time. You never really want an early bye, but this might come at a good time for them because 3 of their first 5 games are at Detroit, hosting 49ers, and hosting the Green Bay Packers. Those are not necessarily 3 offenses that I would be excited about seeing on the schedule. Yeah, with a young defense. Now you get the bye week, and then coming out of it, you get Vegas and Minnesota. But I think how they can weather that early storm, if they can go 3-2 through that first 5, I think that's probably a win for them.
Well, I think you get out the other side of it, and even out the bye, the Raiders with their quarterback situation, you got some questions there. Not to do the thing before the thing, but then you got a potential rookie presumably a rookie quarterback in Minnesota. You have the
Thursday
Patriots
night at home.
In that stretch. You're right, Thursday night at home. You get the Patriots after the bye. I don't know, man. There's tough games on the back end of this too.
Yeah, right.
So I think to your point, if you can have the early season success, I think that'll be helpful because you see Philadelphia, you see Buffalo, you see San Francisco again, but on the road. You got to go to New York to play the Jets. You got Miami against this defense in a primetime situation. The Saints, if they're healthy, have the potential to be a pretty potent offense. There's some tough draws here. So
3 of the first 4 on the road as well.
Yeah. And San Francisco's the home game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
San Francisco historically has had a ton of success head-to-head recently.
Sunday night opening with Detroit. I mean, if you have concerns about like the front 7 and holding up against the run, like Detroit's coming, right? Like week 1, we're all going to see it. We're all going to see it.
That's a good point. They're a really interesting team, right? Because there's a little bit more element of unknown because of all the young players than we've had with a lot of the teams that we've done thus far. And there's also some pillars that give this team a clear identity and how they are able to complement that and weather an early season storm, as you point out, is ultimately going to determine the direction in all likelihood of this season for the Rams. That is going to do it. Yes. You got something?
I was going to ask you, did you see the Sean McVay video with the window and all that?
No.
And oh man, I haven't laughed so hard in a long time. I will send that to you. It's phenomenal. Yeah,
great.
Phenomenal.
So that's what I'll do when we're done here, which is right now. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We are Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make it a great rest of your day. We will be back again tomorrow to do the Seattle Seahawks and their deep dive into their roster for 2024.